Alda became famous because of MASH, but it almost killed him. People in the cast stopped talking to him. One of them even got into a fight that stopped work for 3 days. Alda was in almost every scene for 11 years straight, even when she was sick or hurt. Since I was 8 years old, I've always wanted to be the best writer I can be. I did a cartwheel on the way to the stage to get my award when they told me I won an Emmy for writing this show. He wasn't telling anyone a terrible family secret. Fans were shocked when he finally told them what was wrong in 2018. I haven't told anyone in public until now that I have Parkinson's disease. He might be surprised to hear that when I tell him. Actually, the cancer had been showing signs for years. Alda is going through the saddest time of his life right now. She was born in Manhattan on January 28, 1936. It was Alfonso Joseph de Abruzzo that he was real. Robert Alda, his dad, was an actor and singer. Joan Brown, his mother, was once Miss New York. In other words, Alan was always around show business. But this wasn't a perfect fancy life in Hollywood. It was real, loud and dirty. As a child, he lived in a tiny 2-room apartment right above a lounge. When he tried to sleep, the music made the floor shake. Alan heard jazz, laughter and the buzz of artists while most kids heard bedtime stories. Things were dark behind the lights and music though. Alan saw his mother try to stab his father when he was only 6 years old. She was mentally ill. At the time, no one called it that. He didn't know what the word meant, but he could feel the fear. There was danger in the house where he lived, and quiet could mean that something terrible was going on. That event changed him. He learned to be aware, read people's moods and keep things under control. Alan got polio when he was 7. It was 1943 and everyone was afraid of getting sick. There was damage to his left leg. Instead of an iron lung, his parents chose a very harsh method of care. Someone wrapped him in hot wool and stretched him out for hours. He screamed even though it hurt, and sometimes he bit on cloth to block out the sound. He was bored, so his dad told him jokes. And something clicked. Alan understood that there could be both pain and laughter at the same time. His whole life was based on that lesson. There is humor in pain. In the same year, Alan went on the road with his dad's dancing show while he was still getting better. His school was in the background. People in his class danced, played music and were comedians. He was like a sponge and took in everything. He watched everything and laughed at every joke. He learned how to keep a room interested and keep the beat. Alan was learning how to own a stage when most kids were learning numbers. From theater wings in small places across the country, he saw the world with all of its rough edges and beautiful parts. Alan had been on stage earlier than that. When he was 6 months old, a broken theater fake made his dad carry him on stage as a real baby for a fun act. That was his first show. Before he was 4 years old, he did 17 shows. Alan thought that clapping was normal. He was used to it after dinner by the time he was 3. He asked a friend one time, "When do the audience come?" That was how deeply he was wired for performing. Not all the time was he Alan Alda. His dad came up with that name. He used his first name Alan and last name Dad. It was easier to say than Debruzzo, and theater ads looked better with it. As Alan became an actor, he kept the name. Things didn't get better at home. The illness in his mother got worse. Alan could read her eyes and know when something bad was going to happen by the time she was 11. She would speak to herself or burn notes every once in a while. She stood over his bed with a knife one time because she thought someone was poisoning her. They moved 11 times because she thought there were spies in the walls that they were running from. It wasn't talked about. Not at school or even with your family. Alan took care of her part-time. He turned to entertainment to deal with his feelings. He first did shows during school lunch breaks. He wrote down more than 70 jokes every day and labeled each one with what feeling it made him feel. Line by line, he copied radio scripts from Bob Hope and Jack Benny to try to figure out how humor works. When Alan was 13, his mother was in the hospital and he made up funny figures that could talk and move. He didn't cry when things went wrong. He did something. Alan used to make people laugh when his mother was having a temper tantrum at a school play. He didn't feel bad that night because of the cheers. Alan also felt safe at White Plains Archbishop Stepanak High School. He was in 4 big plays a year and worked at a radio station on the weekends. Even though he had a lot going on at home, he kept up his grades and got a 3.8 GPA. One teacher, Father Matthew Conlon, thought he was unique. Alan did a hard speech from Romeo and Juliet so well in class that some people thought he had been trained by a professional. But I learned everything on my own. He had spent his whole life studying people, pain and time. Alda went to Fordham University for the first time in the early 1950s, but it wasn't easy for him there. He had terrible insomnia that sometimes made him see things that weren't there. It all went back to the stress and pain he felt while getting treatment for polio as a child. Things changed though in 1953. He found safety at the college radio station WFUV. He would go there up to 14 hours a week to learn everything he could about radio and TV. It turned into his world. He almost lost everything when he got in trouble for questioning a local politician live on radio about segregation. At that time it was a brave move. He almost got kicked out of the station. At the same time that he learned his voice wasn't good enough for acting. A tutor told him he had nodules in his vocal cords. She didn't give up. He started working out his voice every day, even reading Shakespeare out loud while gargling salt water. His voice slowly changed as he worked with opera coach Eleanor Stieber. It was his heated speech about civil rights that won him the Jesuit oratorical contest in 1955, beating out 78 other students. The head of the university that had threatened him stood up and cheered. He went to Europe that same year. He had a terrible time during his junior year abroad. His passport, visa and money were all stolen from him in Paris. He worked under the table as a teacher for wealthy French families to make money. His small room flooded twice, and all of his notes got wet. He had 9 days to redo all the work from the semester. He was in a version of Waiting for Godot that was put on illegally at the Roman Forum in Rome. While the play was going on, the whole group was arrested. Alda was locked up for 37 hours before the US Embassy freed him. After that came Amsterdam. As he worked on a TV show with his dad, he suddenly became very sick from an allergy to stage makeup. He went into allergic shock just 7 minutes before the show. He was having trouble breathing. Still, he went on stage and played for 42 minutes while medics with adrenaline waited off to the side. He would always remember that scary moment. After that, he worked hard to get better healthcare for artists, which was something he really cared about for the rest of his career. He joined the army in 1957. A lot of people think his time was dull, but that's not true. Records that were made public in 2012 showed that he worked in Project Stargate, a secret psychological operations unit. With his theater skills, he was able to make up fake identities for training tasks. He even learned how to break codes at the second fastest speed, 100 to 27 words per minute. In his 346-person group, during a drill one night, live bullets were loaded by mistake. He was hit by 2 shots that were just over 8 inches away. For many years he didn't know that the army had his name on a list of people to call back until 1971, just in case of a national disaster. His experience made him into the sarcastic anti-authority doctor he would play on MASH. Something strange happened a year before he joined the army. The two met at a dinner party in Manhattan in 1956. Everyone always says that they fell in love while eating cake off the ground, but there's more to the story. That dinner was planned. Leonard Bernstein put it together. He thought that both of them were smart. His room was where the party took place. The Russian piano player. The night began badly. Alda made fun of Arlene's study. He had selfish dreams about being an actor, she said. Things were tense. A rum cake then fell over while people were arguing about Jean-Paul Sartre. They both knelt down, laughed and picked it up from the ground. That's when things changed. It took her 27 seconds to laugh. He thought about it all the time. They got married on March 15, 1957, but things almost didn't work out that day. Alan had to have surgery right away 2 days ago for an infected wisdom tooth. In every picture his face looked swollen. It rained the night before at the church they had booked. They got married in the flat of composer Richard Rogers. They then lost their rings 90 minutes before the wedding. They were taken by Alan's cousin, who is 4 years old. A mistake was made on their marriage certificate. Whites should have been Weiss. They didn't notice for 25 years. It didn't matter any of this. A doctor told Arlene not to get pregnant because of her heart condition, but they stayed together for 66 years, and had 3 girls. He turned down a big Broadway part in 1962 because it would have kept him away from Arlene, who was pregnant with their second child. Everything was changed by that choice. Family was always the most important thing. Alda's performing career went slowly at first. His first show on Broadway was only in America in 1959, but critics kept saying that he looked a lot like his famous father Robert Alda. He was even known as Robert Alda's boy. One director said he looks like his father but he doesn't have the presence. That comment kept bothering him. From 1960 to 1962 he turned down 3 parts because they made him think of roles his father had played. He even thought about giving up acting at one point to work in ads. Things started to change in 1966. Though, as the lead in the show, The Apple Tree, Alda had to play 3 very different roles. Even though he had asthma the whole time, he came to practice every morning. Most of the time after treatment for his throat. On opening night he had a fever but still did the show. His name was put in for a Tony. The following year he co-starred with Diana Sands in The Owl and the Pussycat, which was one of the first love roles on Broadway between 2 people of different races. 47 letters of hate were sent by people who went to the show. But Alda gave a 6-minute speech in which she changed her feelings 17 times. In the future, acting schools would study that scene. He trained like a real NFL player for his first big movie, Paper Lion, which came out in 1968. During shooting he hurt his head and broke 3 ribs. One time he was knocked out in front of a stadium crowd for 4 minutes. When he woke up he kept playing. Then came the Mephisto Waltz in 1971, a scary movie about someone taking over your body. Alda worked on the piano for 4 months but they used a hand double for close-ups so she stopped. There were also strange events on that set. The room got very cold, the lights kept flickering, and the cameras kept breaking down. Alda didn't talk about that shoot in public for almost 20 years. Still the turns down kept coming. He was turned down for 32 TV parts between 1962 and 1971. He even made it to the final round of Uncle the Man before being eliminated. The group said he wasn't really dangerous. He didn't have enough money to pay his rent, so he had to borrow some. It was called We'll Get By, and it did well with test groups in 1967 but was not shown to the public. He couldn't work for 18 months because of the deal. He did dinner theater in Pennsylvania for $175 a week in 1972, lived off peanut butter and shared a room with 4 other players. He set a due date for himself. By September, if nothing changed, he was going to quit his job and become a teacher. No, each one is enjoyable in its own way. There's a thrill to acting. The thing that's being done is going well. You're not on the ground. Yes, that's why it's a great feeling. Then MASH came along. Alda almost missed the test. The Glass House was being filmed in Utah, and he had to get to Los Angeles that same night. The person who booked the plane for him got sick though. They had to get to Nevada early. To rent a car, Alda put up his grandfather's pocket watch as security. He then drove very fast for 270 miles. It was 9:17 p.m. when he got to the studio. There was still makeup on the casting director but she was about to leave. Alda showed up unprepared and gave a raw performance that got him the part. She didn't say yes right away, though. He asked for time off every 4 weekends to go to New Jersey to see his family. The studio said no. He didn't give up. They finally agreed, but he had to pay for his own tickets. In the end, the show cost him $187,000 altogether. He never talked about it in public again until many years later. He lived as Hawkeye Pierce, not just played him. Alda was in almost every scene that MASH ever made for 11 years in a row. He only missed a few of the 256 shows. He kept going even though he was sick, tired, and burned out. He filmed the whole show in 1978 while sick with the flu and a 103-degree fever. A doctor stood off camera the whole time, ready to step in and help. Everything got even worse in 1979. He worked from Monday to Wednesday. Thursdays he was in charge. Every Friday he wrote. He learned up to 30 pages of lines every single day. In the same year he passed out on set from being too tired. The crew hired a body double for long shots without telling him. Alda told them they had to reshoot everything when he found out. They did it. Alda did more than just play though. He took it because he wanted more power. In 1975, he wrote the show's first episode and quickly became its main source of ideas. When head writer Larry Gelbart quit, Alda filled in the whole time. Later studio records showed that by season 6 he had changed more than half of the dialogue in shows he hadn't even written. He was known for doing a lot of takes. It took Radar 47 tries to get right in one scene, and he was strong. Since these people were off to the side, it was like having the whole crowd watch from the wings while you played a scene for the camera. As of season 5, Alda was free to refuse to work on any scripts that he thought didn't fit with the show's theme. 14 full shows were never shown because of that. Even though they pretended he was just a cast member, CBS had to talk to Alda directly about any creative choice by season 9. He wrote or helped write 31 shows. On 32 was his job. Plus being in charge of the group every week, that's almost a quarter of the whole show. The awards came next. In the same year for the same show, he won Emmys for direct, writing and playing. It had never been done before in 1979. He even put his job at risk to show an episode about sexism. CBS didn't want to show it, but Alda said she would quit if they did. They gave up. After a cruel episode of MASH in 1982 that left him with real burns on his arms because he wouldn't use a stunt double, he finally won his last playing Emmy. It wasn't so easy behind the scenes though. Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, quit after the 3rd season. His deal, which came out in 2019, showed that one big reason was that Alda got 80% of the scenes they shared. In season 6, Harry Morgan and Alda got into a fight when Harry found out that Alda changed one of his moving scenes. For 3 days the set wasn't used. In a controversial shower scene, Loretta Sweet almost quit after Alda told her what to do. In the end, even set lunches were shared. People who backed Alda sat at one table, while those who didn't sat at another. Alda also wrote the last show. But he didn't tell anyone about the story until a few days before filming. That way the actors' tears would seem real. It worked, but not everyone let him off the hook. He didn't talk to Alda for 6 months, because he was so upset. That well-known goodbye sign seen from the helicopter, that was the third thought Alda had. CBS turned down the first 2 because they were too political. He was also writing movies at the same time. The Seduction of Joe Tynan was one of them. In the middle of MASH, he wrote it, sometimes taking notes at 3 a.m. It did well at the box office and earned him a nod for the Writers Guild Award. Almost half of the plot had to be rewritten while the movie was being filmed. He also had a disagreement with the director and talked Meryl Streep into taking the part after she had already said no 7 times. Then came his first movie as a director, The 4 Seasons. The studios didn't think it would work. They only meant for it to make a small amount of money, but it made over $50 million. It cost more than $1 million more to make the movie because Alda insisted on shooting real seasonal changes over 13 months. Alda wouldn't replace Carol Burnett when she got pneumonia, so she changed 31 scenes instead. He filmed most of the movie while having attacks in his stomach and trying to hide the pain. For me, what's exciting is what a good picture it is. You know, most movies are fine whether you go to them, are in them, or just hear about them. In 1992 he shocked Hollywood all over again. In Whispers in the Dark, he played a cruel therapist. It wasn't like his MASH picture at all. He watched real therapy sessions and even talked to 2 killers to get ready. He worked with a biologist, lost 27 pounds, and trained his voice to sound calm but creepy. The part was so serious that it hurt his marriage and gave him bad dreams. It did work though. The audiences were upset, and reviewers praised him for changing who he was. People had heard of Alan Alda for many years, but in the early 2000s, not much was said about him. There wasn't as much fame after MASH. Then something changed in 2004. It was already known for its sharp writing and strong characters before he started The West Wing. Arnold Vinnick was a Republican senator from California that Alda played. He had to learn how to do this new job. Real life he was more on the left side. But Vinnick was a conservative who didn't like it when businesses got free stuff or when faith groups had a say in politics. He didn't just show up a few times. At least 28 shows had Alda in them. The first one was in episode 8 of season 6. By episode 13, his name was in the credits at the beginning. That said a lot by itself. He wasn't just a guest, he was once again a big deal. His character became Secretary of State at the end of the show, which was a strong and honorable ending. Alan Alda still had something important to give, as shown by this event. It was time for the Emmys. Alda got his 6th Emmy in 2006 when he was 70 years old. It was for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series. It had been 24 years since his last Emmy win in 1982. Gregory Itzin, William Shatner, Oliver Platt and Michael Imperioli were some of the big stars he beat. People saw that moment and knew that Alda was still a big deal in TV even though he wasn't funny anymore. There was another big event that year. Alda was nominated for his first Academy Award. He was 68 years old. He played a shady politician named Senator Ralph Owen Brewster in the movie The Aviator. His job was to bring down Howard Hughes. Anything Alda had done before this part was much lighter. It took Leonardo DiCaprio a while to believe that Alda could pull it off. He believed that he was too nice. But after seeing Alda work, even DiCaprio changed his mind. The vote did not lead to a win. Morgan Freeman won the Oscar, but it brought Alda back into serious talks in Hollywood. He wasn't just the guy from MASH anymore. The next event showed that it wasn't a one-time return. Alda kept getting good parts. The father of Jack Donath in 30 Rock was played by him. It was funny and sincere, and it got him another Emmy nomination. He showed up in The Big C from 2011 to 2013. Then at age 79 he played a powerful thief in The Blacklist, for which he was nominated for another Emmy. He didn't slow down even when he was 80 years old. Alda was in Ray Donovan from 2018 to 2020. He was a man who got caught up in Hollywood's dirty secrets. He worked until he was 86 years old. He came back for Ray Donovan 2, the movie, in 2022. He kept playing even though he was told he had Parkinson's in 2015. He didn't try to hide it. In Marriage Story and other shows his shakes were clear, but Alda didn't care. He thought that showing it would help make things normal. He did something risky in 2016. He joined Horace and Pete, a weird unpolished web show made by Louis C.K. Commercials and press releases were not present. Episodes were posted online without any noise. Uncle Pete was a mean old bartender that Alda played. Some people thought it was one of his saddest parts, but they loved it. People said it was the best work he had done in years. Even when Louis C.K. got into trouble, Alda was honest in his response. He told her, "I admire him as an artist, but what he did was wrong." It was difficult, just like the show. But Alda never shied away from telling the truth, even when it was hard. All of this was going on while Alda was writing. He didn't hire someone to write his book for him. He wrote by hand. This was his first book of memoirs. It was called Never Have Your Dog Stuffed and came out in 2005. It was a hit for 27 weeks. His mother, who had manic schizophrenia, came at him with a knife when he was 7 years old. He wrote about painful parts of his past in the book. Everything I Heard While Talking to Myself was his second book. It came out after he had a health scare in Chile. His third book, If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face, was about conversation, a subject he had been studying for a long time. When they were showing Scientific American Frontiers. From 2005 to 2017, Alda wrote first thing in the morning every day. Until 5 a.m. he did this every morning for more than 4,000 days. He was in 12 movies and 3 big TV shows during that time. He had 23 languages made from his books, which sold over 2.7 million copies. He gave all of his money, about $8.40 million, to the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. This center has taught more than 15,000 scientists how to talk about their work. Then July 31, 2018, morning came. Alda, who is 82 years old, told everyone on CBS This Morning that he had Parkinson's. But this wasn't a sad moment. His goal wasn't to get pity. In fact, he was diagnosed after an odd event. He had read that acting out your thoughts while you sleep could be a sign that you have the disease. In his dream one night, someone hit him hard and threw what he thought was a bag of potatoes. He really did throw his wife a pillow. He took a test because of that dream. He didn't go public because his symptoms were getting worse. People had just noticed that his thumb was moving while he was being interviewed. He didn't let the tabloids make up their own tales. He was in charge. He spoke freely and without shame. In the fall of that year, he did a show with Michael J. Fox called Clear Plus Vivid. Fox had been told at age 29. They talked in an open and positive way. Fox said it wasn't important to guess what would happen with the sickness soon. Be present, and Alda agreed. After that, he joined Fox Insight, an online study for Parkinson's that helps doctors. They became friends not because they were sick, but because of how they thought. Alda's life was shaped by how she thought. He turned down kindness. Parkinson's disease was like a puzzle to him. Research showed that working out helped, so he did fighting, tennis, and even marched to John Philip Sousa songs. He told them not to believe in fraud. Find out what real science is doing. Even at age 86 he could still speak, act and move. His message was easy to understand. He wasn't going to slow down because the world wasn't ending yet.